Sister Beverly Stark, better known by Bev, correct?
Right.
And you formerly were known, and your nun name was Sister George Therese. Now tell us how you got George Therese.
Well, I wanted George Rose, because Rose is my mother's name. That was taken, and Rose George was taken. So then I thought I'd go for George Margaret, which is my mother's middle name.
And that was taken.
That was taken.
That was Margaret Kathy. Yeah.
So anyway, I came from St. Therese Parish.
Okay.
So it's George Therese.
In Lansing.
In Lansing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we got that straightened out. Yeah, that people always want to know what happened to your nun name. And if you didn't have a nun name, you're young because they don't have nun names anymore.
Right.
So thank you, Bev, for your willingness to share your story with us. And we only have a few minutes considering the length of years we've lived. So I'm going to let you begin. If you can just tell us a little bit about your beginnings, where you grew up, a little of your family life, what was the dynamic life in there, and some schooling, and then we'll get into your ministry. So you can begin.
Okay, well, as you know, I grew up in Lansing, Michigan. Initially, we lived in town, but then my sister's 4 years older than I. Well, my mom is Rose. My dad was George. And my sister is 4 years older than I. And when my three brothers came along, our house wasn't big enough.
Oh, wow.
And so we moved sort of to the country. We had like 5 acres of land. My dad used to call this a truck farm.
Okay.
It was all for our benefit. And so anyway, and that was just delightful to be in the country. We'd go camping for my dad's vacation. He always took 2 weeks of vacation, usually in August.
Okay.
And always went camping someplace in Michigan, you know, tent camping.
Good.
All around. Loved the outdoors. I grew to love just being outside.
Nature, yes, you
Nature,
are an earth woman.
And, you know, the family life, I mean, Mom and Dad were wonderful. Now, my mother was Catholic. My dad had no religious affiliation at all. But you're a wonderful person and a wonderful dad.
There are lots of people who are wonderful that aren't Catholic.
I know, or no,
do not, yeah.
Yeah, and anyway, during the Second World War, my dad already had 2 kids, and so for a while he didn't have to worry about getting drafted. But as things were going longer, he knew he was going to get drafted into probably the Army.
Really?
Yeah, and he said he knew he could never shoot anybody face to face, you know. And so he enlisted in the Navy, thinking if he has to shoot something, at least it's a, you know, he's not seeing them eyeball to eyeball.
Isn't that something?
Yeah. And his ship was sunk, but he survived, and so he came back, and there's a 7-year gap between myself and my 3 brothers.
Okay.
And my 3 brothers were bing, bing, bing.
Okay.
After that. I asked my mother one time what happened, and she said the Second World War.
Oh,
and
the
I
big
said,
gap.
and I was old enough to say it didn't last that long, and she said your dad wasn't ready to settle down when he came back, which makes perfect sense. But anyway, we went skiing in the wintertime, you know. I mean, the sports, ice skating.
That's neat, yeah.
Yeah, we just did. My dad would hook the sled up to his tractor and slide, pull us down the road, you know, in the wintertime. And my mother would say, George, that's dangerous, that's dangerous.
No, not today.
No,
so the kids, there were 6 of you?
5.
5, okay.
Yeah, my
3
sister,
boys and 2 girls.
Yeah. So, and they're all wonderful. My sister had 11 kids. She said she had to make up for me. So. But anyway, it was a wonderful childhood.
Oh, that's great.
Growing up.
That's great,
Yeah.
and that's what makes you wonderful.
Well,
yeah.
and in schools, when we were in town, we skipped the Polish parish because they were still having Polish Mass, and they were teaching Polish in the school. We're not Polish.
I was going to say Stark. What are you?
Yeah, that's a long
That's another story. Okay, we'll keep that for next time.
And but so we went to the cathedral. We had the Sisters of Charity there, and they out of Cincinnati. And then when we moved to the St. Therese Parish, which was sort of the country parish, and we had the Sisters of St. Joseph of Nazareth.
This is Lansing.
In
Yeah.
Lansing.
Mm-hmm.
But they only went to 8th grade. So they provided a school bus that went all through and took us to Resurrection for high
Okay.
school. So that's how I ended up at Resurrection.
I see.
And my mother wanted me, when she found out I was going to enter, to go to the
How did you decide about entering?
Oh,
Who tapped you on the shoulder?
who tapped me on? Oh,
Briefly.
my mother used to take us to confession every 2 weeks, on Saturday. So, and you usually know what priest you're going to. Well, I have no idea what I said in confessional, thank God. But my
You
penance,
didn't make it up, I hope.
no, my penance was to go to the back of the church and find a pamphlet with a prayer for vocations and say it.
Oh,
Now, I was so naive. The only vocation I ever knew about was either a nun, priest, or brother. I mean,
Yeah.
we didn't know marriage was a vocation.
right.
So I go back and I find this pamphlet, and I found one that I liked. I went back in church, knelt down, said it, and then I thought, oh my God, he didn't tell me how many times to say it. And they always said 5 Hail Marys or 5. And so I kept saying the darn thing.
Uh-huh.
Every day, every day, every day.
Isn't that
And every day,
interesting?
and eventually.
You're so obedient.
I know. So anyway, that's a story, yes.
Uh-huh, that's interesting. So then you entered. You weren't inspired by some nun or one order?
Well, the order,
St.
yes.
Joseph's?
Yeah, well,
How did you pick Dominicans?
well,
You had them.
Yeah, my dad takes credit for it, but that's not really true. He says it's because he was a sailor and he wore white.
Oh, God.
But that was not my mind. But anyway, no, the difference, the joy, just the
That
joy.
comes
and
across so
I
often.
mean,
Yeah.
it was so different. I mean, the Sisters of Charity that I had were,
Uh-huh.
yeah. And the Sisters of St. Joseph were a little, not so much, but yeah.
Yeah.
It's just, it wasn't a,
Yeah, it wasn't to be.
mhm.
You were called and you responded.
Right.
So then you entered a year before you got out of high school.
Which my dad did not like.
Yeah, I can see.
And finally, Sister Paul Christine was my,
That name is familiar. Who is she?
I've been trying to find,
Okay,
I don't,
okay. Okay,
I
we'll
don't
figure it,
know.
yeah.
And anyway, I asked her to be my sponsor. And I said, she said, I want to see your parents. And when I said my dad didn't want to, I said, my mother, yes, but dad, no. And she said, no, I want to see both of your parents, and you can't come. So anyway, I'm home, on pins and needles, waiting for them to
Because
come.
you thought she was going to say no? The teacher, the nun?
Well, I didn't know what was going to happen. I was afraid of what my dad was going to say. And so anyway, he came home and he said, well, I guess you can go. Well, I was so happy. I gave him such a big hug. I almost broke his back because he fell against the stove. But anyway, he was all right. But anyway, so then
Did they ever tell you what?
Yeah, I found out later. My
Okay.
mother told me, because I asked.
Yeah.
She said, the nun said, if you say no, she'll always resent it. She'll always blame you.
Mm-hmm.
And if you let her go, if it's right for her, she'll stay, and if it's not, she'll come home, or they'll send her home. My dad told my mother that he'd give me 6 months.
Okay,
I was bound and determined it was going to be 6 months and 1 day, if ever.
that's
But
right.
anyway,
That's right.
I
We're going
stayed.
to show you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so now you're in the convent. Now you've been many places, but time is limited. So can you just pick out a couple that were very transformative for you, and I'm sure no matter where you were, was transformative for those with whom you were in
Well, the first
touch.
10 years were, very routine.
Yeah.
You went where you were going, you taught what you were taught. It was when Vatican II happened that things really started opening up.
Now, Vatican II was, some people watching may not understand, it was a time in the church where there were many changes.
That's when John the 23rd said, open the windows, let in the fresh air.
Yeah.
And I was in Ann Arbor at the time, and we took that very seriously. I mean, the whole congregation did, and we were asked to, study the signs of the times. And and we did that, and from there, eventually I decided I wanted to go into religious education. So I was working on a master's degree in Vermont, St. Michael's in Vermont, and in the course of that, I came to understand more about God's preferential option for the poor.
Yeah.
And then I'm thinking, I don't need a master's degree to do this. I mean, to
be yourself.
Yeah. And so anyway, I signed up for the first immersion experience in the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico.
Okay.
And went there, and that was a real eye-opener.
What exactly did you do there?
Well, it was a critique of the capitalist system from the perspective of those on the margins.
Yeah.
Which was
everybody over there.
Well, I mean, it was a real eye-opener. And and then, at the same time that I had signed up for that, the congregation was putting out places that you could mission. I mean, that they're looking for people, because we could choose our own place. And there was one in Cincinnati that was working in the lowest income area in Cincinnati. And so I had applied to that job. Well, unbeknownst to me, Mary Trasco had also signed up for the immersion experience.
Another one of our sisters.
Which was on the east side of Detroit. I didn't know her. She didn't know me. I was on the west side of Detroit when we were in Detroit. And she had also applied for the job in Cincinnati. And so, and they wanted 2 people, so we both got hired.
That's how you two got together.
That's how we got together. Now, when we first got there, it was kind of like, what do we do now, and kinds of things. But the people that had been working there had said, we've been doing this for years and nothing changes. They were handing out food at the end of the month. They had a little clothing store, and they were trying to just direct people to places that could help them. It was called the Contact Center. And so we thought about it, and so anyway, we decided to take a course in Chicago. It was a short course, Midwest Academy in Chicago, teaching community organizing.
Okay.
So then we started community organizing, and that was a wonderful, that whole experience was a wonderful experience. I learned much more than I could ever have given to people. All the people were very low income, but they took care of each other.
Yes, they did, yeah.
Their sense of faith and trust, and put me to shame. Their trust and their faith was such a tested faith from years and years and years of being put down, and yet they continued.
And joy. I guess when I've worked in that environment, it's always been the joy that they have with what little they have.
Yeah.
Just a lesson.
Yeah. We lived in an apartment building, and the contact center was on the first floor. We had the second floor, and then there was a third floor. And the initially there were three of us. Gino Kramer was there to begin with too. Well, then Janelle moved on, and it was just two of us, and it was too big for just Mary and I. And we knew this woman who had 4 girls and was very poor. And she was looking for a place. So we decided we would move out, and she could move in. And the thing is that the parish was paying for our thing there, but if we moved out, we had to find the money to pay for our rent, which
we have.
So anyway, they had St. Teresa Home in Cincinnati.
Cincinnati, right.
In Cincinnati. And so we went out and we asked if they would hire us as nurses' aides 1 day a week. Mary one day, and me a different day. And so that we could still do our work at the contact center and also
get some money.
And get the money to pay our rent at the new place, which they did. So that was an experience too. So anyway, but the people were so good. And then one of the woman who took our apartment told us one time that she saw this gentleman digging through the garbage can. And she was trying to stretch her pennies out to feed her 4 girls. She went and made a sandwich and took it down to this fellow that she didn't know. I mean, that's how they looked out for each other and everything. But yeah, we had a lot of parties, and the singing and the dancing was wonderful.
Good.
And everything. Good. It was good. So anyway, that was Cincinnati. And then we went to Beaufort, South Carolina.
Yeah, that's where I remember you and
yeah. And we did a little bit of community organizing when we got down there, but the South is quite different from, it was a whole different dynamic. And we got a couple things done, but also the congregation had been supporting us for quite a few years, and we both kind of decided maybe we should try to earn some money.
But we were all there with you, and you had us with you,
Yeah. But anyway, so I took a job at the Technical College of the Low Country. And
Technical College of
the Low Country.
The Lowest, I thought.
Yeah, that was the name of it at that time. And actually it was Beaufort Technical College when I started, but then they changed the name to the Low Country because they were reaching out to more than just Beaufort, the county. And Mary took a job at Low Country Human Development Center with Ellen Robertson.
Okay.
And that's where Mary learned about the kids that their parents were mentally challenged, but the kids were not. And but when the kids got in school, there was nobody to help them. And so, and most of the teachers didn't even know that the kids came from, with parents that were mentally challenged. They just thought they were slow kids and weren't doing any, very well. So she started the Thumbs Up program, and that was a wonderful program.
And how long were you and Mary there?
In
A long time.
Yeah, quite a while. I didn't really count the years. I haven't.
I have a relative that lives at Hilton Head.
Oh, that's the other side.
But I didn't know that because I knew at the time, I said to my friend, I know our nuns are right around here. You think South Carolina, you're right next door to each other. But I remember we tried to look you up. I don't know how we tried to do it. Anyway, we were not successful. But you were kind of, in our eyes, kind of famous down there in the work that you were doing for those people, the people.
Yeah. And then my job at the Technical College of the Low Country was I became the director of a federal program called Educational Talent Search. And it went out, the program and the counselors went out to the four-county area and worked with 800 kids who had to be potentially the first one in their family to go to college, and and 2/3 of them had to be from low-income families. So, and that was a very good program too. And of course, the government keeps all kinds of requires all kinds of records, so we had to track the kids.
Right.
And to see how many of them graduated, and then how not only graduated from high school, but then how many actually not just applied to college, but were actually accepted into college.
Good.
And our record was usually be in the 65 to 60.
That's wonderful.
It was. It was really good. There was a range there.
Yeah.
But then when we tried to track to the second year in college, it did drop. And we didn't know if those were stop outs or
Even if there's one at the end, yeah,
I
it's
know.
worth it.
Yeah, but then because they moved and the kids by that time, you couldn't get records from the colleges. They wouldn't, because of all the things, they wouldn't tell us. If we couldn't get it from the kids,
So you were in that area for 10 years.
at least. Yeah.
And why did you leave?
Why did we leave? Let's see. Well, we were there, I think maybe even more than 10 years, but I'm not sure. Let's see. Oh, I know. Mary had retired from Thumbs Up. She had turned, I think she had turned 70 at the time. And I was at the technical college. They started this program that said if you are 65 years, you can retire, but keep working. And you can get your full pay for working, and you can also collect your retirement pay. Now, they held the retirement pay in escrow, but then at the age of 70, you had to quit work. Well,
Yeah.
I had hit 70 and I had to quit working. That was because they were short on teachers, and they were trying to hold the teachers till enough new ones came along.
Who in your life story would you say was a tremendous mentor for you, inspired you?
Well, there's a couple. Joe Gozier was the first one. That was because of teaching. Teaching religion. My religion was the Baltimore Catechism. And so, how did I teach the kids? I was teaching
the Baltimore
Catechism. And Joe Gozier is the one that was saying, and this Vatican II was saying,
wonderful.
And she got me some actual materials that I could use. They really talked about God, loving God, and which was, so that opened my eyes in that sense. So that was really good. Another one would be name.
I'm sure your parents.
Maureen O'Connell, and they still live together.
The Texas.
No, not.
Oh, Pat Johnson and Noreen.
Pat Johnson and Noreen, yeah. And they were at St. Gemma's.
Yeah.
And that was the first parish, or first school I'd ever been in, where when you turned on the news, usually you just watched the news. That was, you turned on the news there, and there was this running commentary. Oh my God, look at that. Oh, I don't agree with that. And that's where my political awareness.
Yeah, they were very good at that. Yeah, they still are.
They really, yes.
Talk about awakenings.
Yes.
Yeah, they awakened you.
They did.
And you were open to it.
Yeah, and that was before I had done the schooling.
That's right, that was early on.
Yeah, that was early on.
But it carried you through.
That was part of what urged me along that line.
So you're at a different time of your life right now, and you're here in Adrian. And you came with Mary, your dear, dear, dear friend.
Yeah, 45 years.
And that was a tremendous loss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's when you first asked me to to do this.
Oh, God.
And
I guess I didn't.
And I
No,
knew
no.
that was not the time.
You're
no.
not. I've learned my lesson since then. But I know the two of you were just very dear friends, and
Yeah. Yeah, she was, I mean, the thing was, actually, we used to kind of batter back and forth when we first got together about how to do things and
Yes,
stuff. And,
yes.
And the thing, the first Christmas, well, I think maybe it was Thanksgiving, we were driving from Cincinnati up to Michigan because she was going to go to her family, I was going to go to my family. So we had like 5 hours in the car.
where's she from?
Sterling,
Detroit.
Sterling Heights.
Sterling Heights.
Yeah.
Okay.
And and we started talking, and we started talking about what we really wanted out of mission, out of our lives, where we, you know, what we thought about God. I mean, and what we realized is that we were on the same wavelength. You know, she believed in the same kind of approach to mission as I did, the same type of prayer. And I mean, we just realized that there was so much in common that after that, it was not that kind of back and forth. It was just things went much more smoothly. Yeah. And
two very spiritual women, grounded in the love of God and living that way, and it was very obvious.
Yeah. And the when our time there kind of came to an end, because what we realized in Cincinnati is some of the people that we were working with were able to then kind of take on the work that we were doing, and that it was better to let them.
Perfect. You know, there's a time to step aside.
Yeah.
And that's a gift to know when that time is.
Yeah. And then Mary looked at me and I looked at her and we said, okay, now what do? Do we each go our separate way or what? And we decided, it's not very often you find somebody that you really get along with, thinks the same way, and so we decided we'd find something together. And we did.
Good.
Yeah, so.
At this time of your life, what gets you out of bed every morning?
What gets me out?
Yeah, what's your purpose and what are you passionate about at this time?
Well, I'm still passionate about justice.
Right, you certainly are. Yeah.
And but I just love getting up in the morning early, and I do get up early and just taking quiet time.
Good.
And just and then after breakfast, I always go for a long walk around, and that's just good for my mental health, my physical health, my spiritual health. It's just wonderful to be outside. I enjoy it. But what I really want to do, but COVID has really put a clamp on it, is I want to be out in Adrian, working not on boards, not on committees.
No, with the people.
With the people of Adrian. And I did start a little bit, and then COVID, anyway, I was going to Daily Bread.
Okay.
Downtown, which is like a soup kitchen.
Yes.
And I was the drink lady. I asked them what they wanted to drink and gave them water or coffee or juice or something or other. And but then when Lenawee County got so overwhelmed with COVID, because I was also going up to the solariums and helping, I was afraid. I'm in good health, so if I got COVID, I figured I'd probably be okay.
Yeah.
And we were all vaccinated and everything. But I was afraid that I could take it to those sisters in Maria. And so I stopped doing that. But I want to get back to that. I want to start doing some voter registration. and I want to get, we used to do it with League of Women Voters.
Well, I'm sure you've gotten hooked up with Kathy Nolan.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
yes, yes.
yeah.
And we've gone to a couple meetings and stuff
Good,
together and stuff, yeah.
That's-
And it's just that things aren't open enough
No,
to,
no.
I took membership in the local NAACP.
Okay,
So,
okay.
I mean, I've done some things, but there's a lot more that I want to do in that.
Is there anything, we're going to have to bring this to a closure.
Okay.
Is there anything about you that we might be surprised about? I know what I want to ask you, which you were talking about on our way over here. What have you done in your history that was a lot of fun?
Whitewater rafting.
Yeah, yeah, very good.
Yeah, yeah. For 9 years in a row, my
That's
brother and his wife and Mary and I
Uh-huh.
would go whitewater rafting at different places.
Why did you stop?
Why did we stop when I was getting older? I had one time Mary and I decided to take some nuns ourselves. And this one older sister decided she wanted to come, and we weren't sure she should have come, but she did. Well, they stopped the raft for lunch, and the guy said, whatever you do, don't get out on the riverside of the raft, because the current is too strong. Get out on the dock side. This crazy lady got out on the riverside. Everybody had left. It was me and her. And I grabbed her arm, and I was hanging on for dear life, trying to get her up and around the front of the boat. And she skinned up her knees and everything. And I just knew if I let go, she would be dead. Anyway, that scared the liver out of me.
Oh, I'm sure.
So,
And you saved her life.
well,
You
but
saved her life.
I decided no more whitewater rafting.
One more brief thing. Scripture, what part of Scripture is Scripture saying has sustained you to this time?
The first one is, this is what I require of you, only this. Do justice, love tenderly, walk humbly with your God.
That's right. And you certainly have, Bev Stark. You certainly have been that woman, very, very dedicated to God's people who are less fortunate. You certainly have been an edification to the rest of us. And you're a blessing here on campus, just your presence. You don't have to say anything. You know, it's that quote I said, we get a glimpse of who you are, the way you behave. And you're your peaceful presence.
Thank you.
So thank you for being here with us.